Good morning, Commander. I just want to start by expressing my appreciation and thanks for trusting me with bringing these matters to my attention. I believe that I have identified all of the key problems and have plans of action in place ready to be enacted that I believe will be 100, that I'm 100% confident will be successful and getting our station and our shift back up to exceeding expectations of the Houston Police Department. The overall theme that we're suffering from right now seems to be a extreme decrease in morale and overall motivation. These issues are manifesting themselves in our officers in a variety of ways, including everything from expressing and showing a lack of care towards the community in general, lack of care and pride in our equipment that's issued and used by the Houston Police Department, as well as a trust problem that is tied into the anti-police sentiment sweeping the country, as well as that is affecting our community and department as a whole. We also have an immediate problem to address, which is this protest that is planned to occur in the district in the next 24 hours. My objective here is going to be to engage in effective communication with our subordinates and sergeants to reach an agreement and an understanding of increased cooperation and encouragement between the department and the community, as well as to enact an immediate plan in place to deal with this potential protest. First and foremost, I'm going to address the protest. I understand that it is advertised and is supposed to be peaceful, but as we've seen with these events and with this group in particular, oftentimes these quote-unquote peaceful protests can turn the corner quickly and become ones of violent and aggression, unfortunately. To that end, I want to task my administrative sergeant and I myself will begin an immediate review of the prior protests involving this particular group. I want to see what tactics and strategies these protesters in regards to this particular group have used in the past and what responses that our shift department and general station response has been in addressing these problems with this particular group of protesters. I want to see what's worked and where we can improve upon from last time. My next source of immediate action is going to be to request notification to our special response group, as well as request additional officers through our crime suppression team, our non-calls for service officers here at the station, as well as the gang division's crime reduction unit, which again is another force multiplier out of the non-calls for service loop. I also want to notify our mounted patrol and put them on standby, request that we get some additional resources from them to be utilized at this particular protest. I'm going to use our station passenger transport vans to load up our additional resource officers. I want to make sure that all officers also have their shields, their riot shields, helmets, PPE, batons, baton rings for their Sam Browne, their duty belts, all of the necessary equipment in dealing with large groups of protesters like we're prone to see and what we'll likely see here. I'm going to stage these vans containing the officers nearby. Depending on the attitudes and the general number of protesters here at the offset, I'm going to stage the vans in close proximity but out of sight. I want to have a careful balance between number of officers that I put out front and visible to the protesters to begin with, as well as and keeping in mind that a initial show of force overwhelming a smaller group of protesters with a high number of heavily geared up, equipped police officers oftentimes has a negative effect on protesters and turns them to anger and violence quicker. So I want to have a good balance between number of officers to number of protesters with the mindset of I need to respond with additional resources quickly and timely, and concealing them from initial view in something like air-conditioned passenger vans would be a great resource here as we work to address this problem effectively. I want to identify the leader of this protest group and make direct contact if at all possible. I want to express to him our understanding and appreciation and support and protection that we will show to his group of protesters as they express their First Amendment right of freedom of speech, but we also need to reach an agreement and an understanding between the two of us that if we see any egregious criminal violations, blocking of roadways, destruction of property, etc., violence of any nature, etc., that it will be addressed swiftly and directly, and that I have no doubt that through effective partnership and communication we can make this a peaceful event for all involved. I'm also going to meet with all the officers that I have staffed to respond to this event. I need to remind them immediately of the absolute necessity to maintain complete professional composure at all times. Oftentimes we see in these protest groups that the overall goal of these protesters is to engage us in newsworthy, cell phone video worthy type encounters, and that they're looking for us to have certain reactions. I want to make sure that my officers don't lose their cool and don't lose their composure and get suckered into an altercation and or an arrest where they end up surrounded by protesters and then we have to have a rescue the officer type situation. That's how we lose control of these events quickly and immediately. So I want to keep that at the forefront of their attention. I'm going to address that in the meeting beforehand, as well as periodically break the radio traffic, the radio air, and remind them on scene of the need to do those things that I just listed. I I want to make sure again that they have all the proper protest equipment that has been issued by the department, as well as body-worn cameras being activated during all direct citizen interaction at a time like this or in an incident like this. I want to remind them that these events are fluid. They need to be ready and flexible to respond at any moment's notice, and to have direct contact with their direct supervisors at events like this. I want to make sure that I get a special radio channel, a specific radio channel rather, identified through dispatch so that my officers and me can have complete, uninterrupted, coordinated communication at this event. I also want to get a hold of a map of the specific area where this group is supposed to meet, identifying any potential danger zones, any access to freeway entrance ramps, exit ramps, that kind of thing. If a goal of theirs is going to be to block roadways, I'm going to get mobility response team units and additional units in place beforehand in order to block those potential access points to major highways and roads. I'm going to make sure we take that resource away from them, or that ability to block roads away from the group before this event even gets kicked off. I also want to make sure the command center is notified when we're on scene and continuously update them as the event transpires. That's how we're going to handle that protest that is due to occur in 24 hours. All the work we're going to do preemptively is going to put us in a position to deal with it in a tremendous fashion when it gets going. In general, the morale and motivation problem is going to be the overall theme and the thing that I need to tackle immediately. I need to ensure that the officers, first and foremost, understand that myself and the supervisors are here for them on a personal as well as a career developmental level. We do not see them as just names and or unit numbers on a sheet of paper or on a map around a district and beat. We genuinely appreciate and care for them on a human level, and it's my job to make that clear. It's one thing to say that in a roll call speech or to say that in an introductory speech, but I'm going to display that kind of behavior and attitude on a daily basis. I'm going to check by on scenes when at all possible. And I'm going to acknowledge good work with commendations, awards, general words of thank you, acknowledgement of good work, and or appreciation emails sent to officers and or sergeants when I see good work. This kind of daily reminder and daily interaction with officers is going to show that I'm not just up here spouting empty platitudes about involved management philosophy, open door policy, etc., but that I genuinely care for them on a human level as well as a career level. To that end, on the career level, I'm going to engage in specific one-on-one meetings with my subordinate officers as well as my sergeants. This is going to take weeks to get through everybody, but we're going to do a couple a day, and these meetings are going to run about 5 to 10 minutes when the officer has downtime or immediately following roll call, and it's going to involve me speaking directly with the sergeant or me speaking directly with the officer and identifying 3 key areas. First and foremost, I want to know what kind of specialized training this officer or sergeant is interested in achieving and getting here at the department, how they think that training can make them better, and I want to put them in touch with academy resources and or outside resources if it's not something that the department can offer them. Number 2, I want to see what their career development looks like, what their career goals are. Do they want to go to the reactive side, proactive side, administrative side? I've held spots in all of these areas of the department. I was a robbery division sergeant for a number of years, supervising a squad of detectives working complex robbery cases while balancing my own robbery cases. For 6 or 7 years before promoting to sergeant, I was a crime reduction unit investigator working under the gang division, specializing in proactive street level crimes. I've also been on the administrative side, working administrative investigations as a sergeant with the internal affairs division, and I've also taken multiple promotional exams and been successful on each one that I've taken. So wherever their career development lies, I want to make sure that I'm in a position to help them achieve that. The third thing is again, what rank they would like to achieve. Are they looking to take the next promotional exam? Again, I've taken a couple myself. I can offer them valuable insight and support and what things that have worked for me in achieving all of these different goals, whatever they may be. I want to use every resource and ability that I have to make them a better officer, to improve their work life and their quality of life in general, thereby getting buy-in to increase motivation and morale here at the patrol station, where they have to put the work in and the experience and the learning before they can go off to these other areas around the department. Tied into the morale problem and general motivation is trash being left in the vehicle and the overall staffing issues, particularly with use of sick leave on weekend shifts. I need to express a zero tolerance for both of those things. They're both clear departmental violations. As far as the trash left in vehicles, it's a huge officer safety issue and a pride and equipment issue. If officers are having to spend time at the beginning and or end of every shift cleaning out trash from previously that was left in there by previous officers using that vehicle, it's taking away from the time that they're able to get out and respond to calls for service and or respond to officer assist needs out there in the district and beat. We cannot have that. Any issue, I'm going to delegate my desk sergeant and my radio room personnel to be conducting daily audits, random audits, and daily inspections of vehicles as they are turned in, and addressing any trash and or equipment violations that are found with progressive discipline and notifying me immediately. I also want to make sure that we are instituting the bringing in the medical doctor's note when we are above the department mandated 8 8 days of or 8 events of unscheduled leave time. When we get by that, we have to be instituting the doctor's note, as well as when it appears that there's pattern of practice of officers and or sergeants utilizing sick leave on the weekends in particular. We reserve the right per departmental policy to request doctor's notes when it comes clear that this is only occurring on the weekends. We need to get a hold on that and institute that doctor's note as well. And we need to encourage officers to think about the officer safety aspect when they call in on the weekends, thereby leaving the shift short. All you're doing is passing the buck off and the load off onto your fellow district and beat mates. They're having to pick up the slack, they're having to run extra calls, they're having to respond to high profile and dangerous events with less officers in general, creating a huge officer safety issue. We are each other's keepers out here, and we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to show up to work when we are scheduled to work, with the understanding that every now and then medical events, family emergencies do occur, and it's as long as you're notifying your supervisor immediately when those do occur, and they are frequent and they are infrequent and of a varying nature, not just on the weekends. That is absolutely something we'll keep in mind as well when progressing through discipline for these kinds of issues. Further linked to the motivation and morale problem is the not attending department-sponsored event. I understand that the previous lieutenant here did not necessarily agree with community policing, did not trust the leadership of the department. I want to do what I can to touch base with each one of you, each one of my subordinates, and identify things that they felt like the previous lieutenant did well, with the understanding that community policing absolutely is going to be paramount and something that we enforce here under my leadership here at the station. We need to be thinking about the benefits that something like community policing brings to the department. A lot of these, whether it's a serious crime such as shootings, robberies, homicides, that kind of thing, gang activity, drug trafficking, or nuisance problems like general speeding or loud noise complaints, we will absolutely not be anywhere near as successful as the department in solving these kinds of problems and enacting changes for the betterment of our community and our city at large if we do not get buy-in and direct information from the residents who live in the community themselves. That kind of information is invaluable on the front lines out there from these residents, and if they do not trust us and they do not know us, they do not see our faces, they cannot list even one officer that is responsible for their district or beat in providing police services, then that's a black eye to our reputation, and that's something we're going to enact changes on immediately. I'm going to be delegating and instructing my differential response team sergeant, as well as my community service officers, to ramp up efforts in the neighborhoods. We want to get to the reason as to why. Well, I want to figure out why these officers aren't showing up. I want to figure out why no phone call or no email or anything was made. If it was a one-time event, we can address that with counseling and or coaching after clearing with my division commander. If this has happened multiple times, I need to express a zero tolerance policy on something like this. Forgetting to attend departmental sponsored events is absolutely something that we're not going to tolerate. These are extremely valuable opportunities for us to touch base on a personal human level with these community members. They're coming to our sponsored event to meet with us, to talk to us, to express their needs and wants as the community that we serve. And it is absolutely our duty and responsibility to be there and be present and listen to their needs and enact changes and policy changes where we can, or procedures where we can. I need to encourage renewed interest and buy-in to that end. We need to understand that the department definitely cannot do it alone, and that the community knows that we will intervene and help whenever we can. I'm going to address community leaders directly. I'm going to begin by rescheduling this meeting that my officers missed and failed to attend. I'm going to acknowledge the fact that we messed up and apologize for that, and assure them that it absolutely will never happen again. I'm also going to ensure them that I'm going to personally be attending the very next meeting so that I have an opportunity to introduce myself and talk about the exciting new changes that I'm bringing with my tenure here at the station and what I plan to do to increase community involvement. To that end, one of the first things I'm going to do is enact a direct phone number and or text line, as well as an email address that's going to go directly to my differential response team, as well as my community service officers. It's going to be a direct line for our community to provide information versus calling 911 and waiting an hour, 2, 3 hours for officers to respond to a code 6 or to a code 4 or a code 5 or a code 6 loud noise complaint, complaint of speeding, complaint of drug trafficking, things of that nature. I want to get a direct line to my differential response team so that we can begin compiling stats on specific locations and enact enforcement strategies to address these locations when they begin to be identified in a much timelier, immediate fashion. I'm going to engage in more station open houses and encourage community members to partake in citizen ride-alongs, as well as make sure they're aware of the benefits of attending the Citizen Police Academy. It's a tremendous resource to figure out exactly what police officers deal with, broadening the scope of the picture and understanding and creating a clearer picture for both sides as we try to tackle crime in our city. I'm going to be following up with roll calls here in the at least on a weekly basis. I want my officers and sergeants to see me. I'm going to be a direct example for the behavior that I expect them to model. I'm going to acknowledge good work with words of thanks and commendations when I see it, and initiate these coaching meetings as discussed earlier with the mindset of developing careers and personal development wherever possible. I'm going to do weekly reviews of the sick time use as well as daily reviews of the equipment violations, and address that with progressive discipline when necessary.